Most people think success announces itself early, that greatness is obvious, loud, celebrated. They imagine it arriving fully formed, like a gift from fate. But the truth is, real greatness usually starts in silence. It begins in moments no one notices. In early mornings when the world is still asleep, in failures that leave no audience, in doubts that no one else can see, before the records, before the trophies, before the world learned his name, Cristiano Ronaldo was just a boy trying to outrun limitation. No privilege, no protection, no guarantees. Just a growing awareness that if he wanted more from life, he would have to demand it from himself first. Every day, every practice, every run became a small choice. To quit or to push, to accept mediocrity or to chase the impossible. And that choice, repeated thousands of times, quietly started shaping the man he would become. This is not a story about natural talent alone. Talent is easy, talent is loud. Talent can get you noticed, but it does not get you results. What separates someone remembered from someone celebrated is effort, discipline, and the courage to persist when the world isn't applauding. This is a story about discomfort, about obsession, about refusing to accept the boundaries of your environment, about nights spent training alone, about losses that burn longer than victories shine, about believing in yourself when no one else does. It's about what happens when ambition grows faster than opportunity and what it costs to keep going anyway. Every missed goal, every doubt, every whispered criticism becomes fuel. Every obstacle becomes a test, not a barrier. And it is in those tests, in those silent moments, that greatness is quietly built, brick by brick. This is the story of Cristiano Ronaldo. Not as a superstar, not as the face of global football, not as a name etched into record books, but as a decision, a choice, to fight, to rise, to refuse to settle, to show the world every single day that limits exist only until you outwork them. Because before the roar of the crowd, before the lights of the stadium, before history noticed him at all, Cristiano Ronaldo had already made one of the most important choices of his life. He chose himself. He didn't have language for it back then, but Ronaldo felt the weight of limitation early. In a place like Madeira, life teaches you realism before it teaches you hope. Dreams are allowed, but only small ones. Big ambition feels irresponsible. When you grow up surrounded by that mindset, wanting more can feel like betrayal. And yet something inside him refused to quiet down. Football became the one place where rules dissolved. On the pitch, there were no ceilings. No one told him what was reasonable or what was too much. There was only effort and outcome. Run faster, and you get past someone. Try again, and sometimes it works. That simplicity was powerful. It made sense. In a world that otherwise felt fixed, he didn't just practice, he repeated, over and over, touch after touch, mistake after mistake. Not because someone forced him to, but because stopping felt wrong. Each session carried urgency, like time was limited, and he could feel it slipping away. While others drifted in and out of focus, Ronaldo stayed locked in, eyes forward, jaw tight, completely present. Adults noticed his seriousness and often misunderstood it. They told him to smile more, to loosen up, to remember he was just a child. But they didn't see what he felt. That football wasn't play to him, it was direction. It was proof that movement was possible in a world that quietly expected stillness. At home, resources were limited, but discipline was not. Ronaldo learned early that excuses didn't change outcomes. If boots were worn, you played anyway. If the ground was rough, you adapted. Scarcity sharpened him. It taught him to value every opportunity because there were not many to waste. What Madeira gave him was not comfort, it gave him hunger. The island didn't protect him from struggle, it introduced him to it early. And that early exposure shaped a mindset that would follow him everywhere. Nothing is owed, effort is non-negotiable, and if you want more, you have to earn it long before anyone is watching. This was the foundation, before trophies, before records, before belief from anyone else. A boy surrounded by ocean, already learning that escape is built, not granted. As Ronaldo grew, the gap between him and others became impossible to ignore. Not just in skill, but in attitude, focus, and sheer hunger. While other kids were content to finish training and go home, Ronaldo stayed behind. He practiced shots over and over, ran extra sprints, and repeated drills until his legs burned. Losses didn't just sting, they haunted him, lingering long after everyone else had moved on. And he felt it in his chest, in his thoughts, in his restless nights. Some kids laughed at him for trying so hard. They whispered that he was too serious, too dramatic, too obsessed. Coaches sometimes warned him not to push so far, worried he might burn out. Adults shook their heads at the intensity they didn't understand, believing that passion, this fierce, was dangerous, even fragile. But what they saw as excess emotion was actually self-pressure. Ronaldo wasn't competing with anyone else on the pitch. He was competing with the version of himself he already knew existed, the one he could see in glimpses but hadn't yet reached. And that is a painful place to live mentally. Imagine holding yourself to a standard higher than anyone else can measure, constantly chasing something you can only partly touch. That's what his childhood felt like. Exhilarating, lonely, and relentless. When you care that much, failure doesn't roll off your back. It doesn't fade with time. It sits in the room with you. It follows you home. It keeps you awake at night. For most people, that would be unbearable. For Ronaldo, it became fuel. He didn't switch it off. He leaned into it. He let it shape him, not break him. But the cost was clear. Being misunderstood, judged, and often criticized became part of the daily routine. Here's the uncomfortable truth that few ever grasp. People don't like intensity unless it's already successful. Before success, intensity looks annoying. Before recognition, it looks excessive. Before results, it looks like stubbornness. But after success, it looks inspiring, unstoppable, legendary. Ronaldo learned that lesson early. He realized that being ahead of your time, being hungrier than those around you, always invites skepticism. And if you want greatness, you have to accept that isolation and criticism are part of the journey. And so he embraced it. Every insult, every doubt, every sideways glance became another reason to push further, train longer, and demand more of himself. The world would eventually understand, but only after he proved it on the field, one relentless step at a time. At just 12 years old, Cristiano Ronaldo left the small island of Madeira to join Sporting CP in Lisbon. That sentence sounds simple, almost matter of fact. It wasn't, not even close. He didn't just leave a city, he didn't just leave a home. He left safety, familiarity, and the people who loved him most. He left the only life he had ever known and traded it for uncertainty, for a dream that offered no guarantees, for a path that could just as easily break him as make him. A warm home was replaced by dorm rooms and strangers. Familiar routines were replaced by schedules he didn't choose. And yet, he took the step anyway. Lisbon was unrelenting. His Madeiran accent marked him immediately as an outsider. His background made him easy prey for jokes and isolation. The other kids came from families who could visit on weekends, who had comforts and networks he didn't. Ronaldo was alone, and loneliness became routine. Quiet, heavy, almost suffocating. There were nights he cried himself to sleep. Nights when the walls of his dorm felt smaller than the weight of expectation on his young shoulders. Nights when he questioned the decision, wondering if the sacrifice was worth it. Nights when quitting would have been understandable, even smart, and no one would have blamed him. But here's the most important truth. Ronaldo didn't romanticize sacrifice while living it. He didn't smile and call it a story he'd tell later. It hurt. It was raw. It was isolating. It tested him mentally in ways most children never experience. It demanded more patience, more discipline, and more courage than most adults would be ready for. And still, he stayed. Why? Because even at 12, he understood something rare. Short-term comfort can steal long-term potential. He saw that what feels easy now, sleeping longer, quitting, avoiding pain, can cost you everything you want later. He learned that growth is uncomfortable, progress often lonely, and that greatness begins where comfort ends. He turned solitude into strength. He turned doubt into fuel. While others went home to safety and support, Ronaldo trained longer, ran faster, and pushed further. Every drill became more than practice. It became a statement to himself that even alone, even misunderstood, even exhausted, he would not surrender. By embracing discomfort at an age when most children are discovering simple joys, he was already shaping a mindset that would define his entire life. That resilience is forged in isolation, and that to become exceptional, you must sometimes walk the hardest path alone. Just as things began stabilizing in Lisbon, just as he was beginning to find a rhythm in his new life, another test arrived, one that went far beyond football. Doctors discovered a heart condition. At 12, Ronaldo was told he needed surgery. His heart, his most vital instrument, the very engine that had carried him this far, was at risk. Football, his escape, his identity, his only vision of the future, suddenly became uncertain. The dream he had chased across the ocean, leaving family and familiarity behind, could now be taken away by something he had no control over. Imagine being that young, already alone, already under immense pressure, and now being told that the one thing you've sacrificed everything for might vanish. For most children, it would have been paralyzing. For Ronaldo, it was terrifying, but also clarifying. The surgery was successful. The doctors fixed his heart, and he survived what could have ended everything. But the fear didn't leave. It lingered in his mind, a quiet reminder of fragility. Every heartbeat after that was a gift, and every opportunity to train, to run, to improve, became a statement. Nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is owed. When he returned to training, Ronaldo didn't just come back. He came back different. He trained like someone who understood the true value of every moment. No session was wasted. No repetition skipped. No opportunity ignored. He didn't coast. He didn't assume tomorrow was guaranteed. He approached every drill, every sprint, every touch of the ball with the intensity of someone who had stared at the possibility of losing everything and decided not to wait for permission to act. This wasn't motivation in the way we usually understand it. This wasn't a pep talk or a dream he could fantasize about. This was survival instinct. The kind that doesn't ask for applause, the kind that doesn't pause for recognition, the kind that pushes you forward even when no one is watching. From that point forward, Ronaldo's life carried the same quiet urgency he had felt in that Lisbon dorm. Every day mattered, every moment counted, and every failure was a lesson he could not afford to ignore. That moment, more than any goal or trophy, shaped the mindset that would define him for the rest of his career. Risk, fear, and adversity are not signals to stop. They are signals to rise higher. In 2003, Sporting CP hosted a friendly match against Manchester United. On paper, it was supposed to be ceremonial, a simple exhibition game, an opportunity for Sporting to showcase their talent to visiting fans. But for one player, it became the night that changed everything. Ronaldo dominated, not just with skill, but with presence. His pace left defenders scrambling. His dribbles cut through the pitch like a knife. But it wasn't just physical. It was his confidence, the way he carried himself, the way he dared to take responsibility at moments when even seasoned professionals hesitated. Every touch of the ball, every sprint, every feint told a story. He believed he could make a difference, and he wasn't afraid to prove it. By the end of the match, Sir Alex Ferguson's players were reportedly urging him to sign the teenager immediately. They didn't just see talent, they saw something different, something rare, a relentless work ethic wrapped in audacious skill. A player who demanded the game rise to meet him. At 18 years old, Ronaldo made the leap across countries, cultures, and leagues. He joined Manchester United, the club that had dominated English football for years. But make no mistake, the dream did not arrive wrapped in ease. It came with challenges, pressure, and scrutiny. England was different. The Premier League was faster, harsher, more physical than anything he had experienced in Portugal. Every mistake was magnified. Every challenge from an opponent tested not just his ability, but his resolve. Fans could be unforgiving, media could be relentless. And here was a teenager, thousands of miles from home, asked not just to play, but to prove himself every single day. It was here that Ronaldo learned another essential truth. Talent alone is not enough. Skill can open doors, but it cannot guarantee respect, results, or longevity. To succeed, he would need to transform himself entirely. physically, mentally, and emotionally. He would need to adapt, to outwork everyone around him, to turn criticism into fuel, and to approach every challenge as an opportunity, not a threat. The journey had truly begun. Manchester United was no longer just a club. It was a testing ground, a proving ground, a stage where the boy from Madeira would begin forging the resilience, discipline, and hunger that would define the rest of his career. Because the dream, as he quickly realized, was never about showing up. It was about standing out when it mattered most. England exposed him like no league ever had. The Premier League didn't care about youth, talent, or potential. It was physical, unforgiving, relentless, and impatient. Defenders hit hard. Matches demanded stamina, speed, and grit from start to finish. Ronaldo arrived with skill, flair, and audacity, but he quickly discovered that flair without consistency was not enough. Every fancy trick, every daring dribble, every ambitious attempt to dazzle that failed was scrutinized. Fans booed. Commentators questioned him. Headlines doubted his mentality. He was criticized for trying too much, for losing the ball, for caring too visibly. And yet, emotion followed him as it always had. He reacted to failure. He felt it deeply. It stayed with him long after the match ended, and anyone watching could see it. This was a boy carrying enormous pressure, far from home, under a microscope at every touch. But here's the key. Ronaldo didn't let it break him. He listened, not to the applause or the criticism, but to himself. He understood that talent was a starting point, not the destination, and so he adapted. He transformed his body, added muscle, increased endurance. He learned the physical demands of the league weren't optional. They were mandatory. He transformed his mind, studied games, opponents, and patterns, improved decision-making, learned when to take risks and when to act with precision. He transformed his game, reduced unnecessary flair, increased output. Every training session became a step toward mastery, not just performance. While others trained to maintain, Ronaldo trained to dominate. While others sought approval, he sought improvement. He was never chasing applause, he was chasing excellence. By 2008, the transformation was undeniable. Ronaldo was no longer potential, he was dominance. His 42 goals in a single season announced it to the world. The Premier League title, the Champions League trophy, and his first Ballon d'Or confirmed it. Yet even with accolades piled high, even with the world at his feet, he was not satisfied. Because for Ronaldo, success was never a finish line. It was fuel. Every goal, every trophy, every recognition became another reason to push harder, train longer, and demand more. Not just from the world, but from himself. And that relentless drive, that refusal to settle, would become the hallmark of his career, a mindset that would carry him across countries, leagues, and records. Real Madrid came next. The transfer fee alone made headlines. A world record sum that placed every expectation of every fan, every journalist, and every former player squarely on his shoulders. It wasn't just a new club, it was a stage where every move would be dissected, where mistakes would be magnified, and where comparison would be relentless. And there was one shadow he could never escape: Lionel Messi. The world loved Messi for effortless brilliance, natural talent that seemed untouchable. Ronaldo, by contrast, was constructed. He was meticulously built, refined through obsession and work ethic, not by casual genius. And in Spain, the comparison was inescapable. Every goal he scored was weighed against Messi's artistry. Every mistake was amplified. Every team failure became a question mark over his legacy. Ronaldo scored relentlessly. Season after season, his numbers were extraordinary. Goals that defied logic, performances that could change games single-handedly. Yet the criticism never stopped. Early Champions League exits stung in ways that trophies hadn't prepared him for. Fans demanded more. Media questioned whether he could carry a club with global ambition. Scoring, something he had mastered, was no longer enough. Legacy demanded tangible triumphs, trophies, and moments of decisive impact. This was a low point disguised as success. To the world, he was flourishing. To him, the pressure was suffocating. The scrutiny was constant. The sense that no matter how much he did, it would never be enough, weighed heavily. And yet it is in these moments, the moments when the world applauds but the heart doubts, that true evolution begins. Ronaldo adapted again. This wasn't a casual adjustment. This was reinvention. He transformed from a winger into a striker, shifting his game to maximize efficiency, ruthlessness, and precision. Flair gave way to calculation. Speed became anticipation. Creativity became opportunity. Goals weren't just celebrated, they were inevitable. He became sharper, stronger, smarter. Every touch, every run, every shot became purposeful. It was more than physical adaptation, it was mental fortification. He learned to tune out noise, to focus only on what mattered: the ball, the goal, the next opportunity to leave a mark. Every failure was analyzed, every challenge turned into fuel, every doubt used to refine his game further. By doing this, Ronaldo didn't just survive Real Madrid's pressure, he redefined it. He became the player who could carry his team in decisive moments, who could rise in finals, who could score in the moments others faltered. He became unstoppable. From 2014 to 2018, Cristiano Ronaldo didn't just play in Europe, he owned it. Year after year, knockout after knockout, final after final, he was the player who emerged when stakes were highest. Stadiums were full, cameras were rolling, millions of eyes were watching, and yet he didn't just respond, he thrived. 4 Champions League titles in 5 years. Think about that. The tournament that exposes every weakness, every mistake, every moment of indecision. Yet Ronaldo found a way to deliver relentlessly. His goals weren't just numbers. They were decisive, monumental, unforgettable. The kind of goals that bend games, bend expectations, and bend history. Knockout goals, final goals, pressure goals. Goals scored when every ounce of doubt, every second of fatigue, and every expectation threatened to collapse around him. But it wasn't just physical. He didn't just arrive at the pitch with skill. He arrived with mental architecture, a mindset designed for pressure, a brain wired to calculate, anticipate, and act under stress. He trained his body, yes, but he trained his mind even harder. Every challenge, every elimination, every near miss became part of a growing fortress of resilience. Every mistake was logged, analyzed, and converted into a lesson. And when others cracked under pressure, he became sharper, hungrier, more ruthless. This period wasn't about comfort or repetition. It was about reinvention in real time, adjusting to opponents who studied him, defenders who tried to predict him, teams desperate to stop him. And yet, year after year, he adapted, outperformed, and redefined what it meant to be decisive on the biggest stages. This is what separates good players from legends. Many have talent, many have skill. Few can perform when everything is on the line, when failure is catastrophic, and when expectation threatens to crush them. Ronaldo didn't just survive that pressure, he designed it, thrived within it, and let it fuel him. That's not talent, that's mental architecture, a calculated obsession, a relentless pursuit of perfection, a refusal to let circumstances, critics, or even fatigue dictate the outcome. Between 2014 and 2018, Europe learned an essential truth. Ronaldo is inevitable when it matters most. Euro 2016 tested Cristiano Ronaldo in a way that no club or league ever had. This was not about goals, speed, or records. This was about pain, responsibility, and leadership under pressure. In the final against France, disaster struck. He was injured early, a tear on the pitch that forced him to leave. For a player whose identity had always been tied to performance, contribution, and scoring, this was a moment that could have crushed him. Imagine standing there, watching your team carry the weight of your nation, knowing you cannot physically influence the game. The crowd is roaring, teammates are fighting, and every kick of the ball is a reminder of what you cannot do. Tears came, not from weakness, but from frustration, love, and desire. It was a raw human moment, one that exposed vulnerability, even in a legend. But this time, Ronaldo didn't disappear. He didn't sulk. He didn't let the injury become an excuse or a retreat. Instead, he stood for his team in another way. From the sidelines, he became a conductor, orchestrating energy, focus, and belief. He directed, encouraged, motivated. He shouted instructions, clapped, pointed, and reminded everyone, teammates and himself alike, that victory was possible. He became the heartbeat of the team without touching the ball. Portugal went on to win their first major trophy in history, and while the headlines celebrated the goals and the final result, the real story was Ronaldo's leadership. Leadership doesn't always wear boots. Leadership doesn't always score points or dribble past defenders. Sometimes leadership is about being present, lifting others, and refusing to let circumstances diminish your influence. In that moment, Ronaldo showed the world that greatness is more than talent. It is resilience. It is courage. It is the ability to inspire, even when you cannot directly act. He turned personal disappointment into collective triumph, proving that true champions create impact beyond the numbers on a scoreboard. And for Ronaldo, that lesson, transforming adversity into leadership, would echo through the rest of his career, shaping him not just as a player, but as an enduring symbol of perseverance and influence. This period wasn't about comfort or repetition. It was about reinvention in real time, adjusting to opponents who studied him, defenders who tried to predict him, teams desperate to stop him. And yet, year after year, he adapted, outperformed, and redefined what it meant to be decisive on the biggest stages. This is what separates good players from legends. Many have talent, many have skill. Few can perform when everything is on the line, when failure is catastrophic, and when expectation threatens to crush them. Ronaldo didn't just survive that pressure, he designed it, thrived within it, and let it fuel him. That's not talent, that's mental architecture. A calculated obsession, a relentless pursuit of perfection, a refusal to let circumstances, critics, or even fatigue dictate the outcome. Between 2014 and 2018, Europe learned an essential truth. Ronaldo is inevitable when it matters most. Euro 2016 tested Cristiano Ronaldo in a way that no club or league ever had. This was not about goals, speed, or records. This was about pain, responsibility, and leadership under pressure. In the final against France, disaster struck. He was injured early, a tear on the pitch that forced him to leave. For a player whose identity had always been tied to performance, contribution, and scoring, this was a moment that could have crushed him. Imagine standing there watching your team carry the weight of your nation, knowing you cannot physically influence the game. The crowd is roaring, teammates are fighting, and every kick of the ball is a reminder of what you cannot do. Tears came, not from weakness, but from frustration, love, and desire. It was a raw human moment, one that exposed vulnerability, even in a legend. But this time, Ronaldo didn't disappear. He didn't sulk. He didn't let the injury become an excuse or a retreat. Instead, he stood for his team in another way. From the sidelines, he became a conductor, orchestrating energy, focus, and belief. He directed, encouraged, motivated. He shouted instructions, clapped, pointed, and reminded everyone, teammates and himself alike, that victory was possible. He became the heartbeat of the team without touching the ball. Portugal went on to win their first major trophy in history. And while the headlines celebrated the goals and the final result, the real story was Ronaldo's leadership. Leadership doesn't always wear boots. Leadership doesn't always score points or dribble past defenders. Sometimes leadership is about being present, lifting others, and refusing to let circumstances diminish your influence. In that moment, Ronaldo showed the world that greatness is more than talent. It is resilience. It is courage. It is the ability to inspire, even when you cannot directly act. He turned personal disappointment into collective triumph, proving that true champions create impact beyond the numbers on a scoreboard. And for Ronaldo, that lesson, transforming adversity into leadership, would echo through the rest of his career, shaping him not just as a player, but as an enduring symbol of perseverance and influence. Later years brought chaos, the kind of chaos that tests not just skill, but identity and purpose. Ronaldo moved to Juventus, adapting to a new league, a new culture, and new expectations at an age when many players begin to fade. Critics whispered that his best days were behind him, that the records would stop. That time inevitably would catch up. Then came the return to Manchester United, a club full of memories, a crowd full of expectations, and a media ready to judge every move. Some saw it as a homecoming, others saw it as a last act before decline. And still, Ronaldo showed the world that age is irrelevant when standards are unwavering. Finally, a new chapter in Saudi Arabia. A different stage, a different challenge. The spotlight shifted, the environment changed, and yet one constant remained: his mindset. Critics questioned, doubted, and declared the story over. But history was still being written, not in opinion pieces, but in numbers, records, and relentless performance. Yet here is the subtle truth. Ronaldo didn't chase applause. He didn't chase headlines. He didn't play for validation or approval. He chased standards. Standards he set for himself. Standards that demanded discipline, consistency, and effort every single day. Records fell because he refused to let complacency define him. Achievements piled up because he refused to compromise, refused to slow down, refused to accept good enough. Ronaldo's story, in the end, is a testament to what happens when you prioritize principles over praise, work over recognition, and standards over approval. He became more than a footballer. He became a symbol of relentless pursuit, unwavering discipline, and refusal to be limited by time, age, or expectation. In every league, every trophy, every goal, and every record, he left a mark that went beyond statistics. He left a blueprint for excellence, a lesson for anyone chasing greatness in any field. It's not about being the best in the world. It's about being the best version of yourself every single day. Because that is the real legacy of Cristiano Ronaldo, a life defined not by applause, but by unyielding standards, resilience, and the courage to keep rising when the world says it's over. Cristiano Ronaldo was not chosen. No one handed him success on a silver platter. No one waited with applause at the doors of Madeira. No one guaranteed trophies, records, or glory. He earned them. He built them. He chose himself. Every single day, in uncomfortable conditions, long before the world believed, long before anyone noticed, long before anyone understood the price of his persistence. His story isn't just about football. It's not about goals, titles, or trophies. It's about refusal, the refusal to shrink in the face of challenge, the refusal to settle for comfort when ambition demands sacrifice, the refusal to stop evolving even when the world tells you your best days are behind you. That is the lesson he leaves, not just for athletes, but for anyone chasing excellence, anyone daring to rise above circumstance, anyone trying to make their mark. Ronaldo's life proves something essential. You don't need perfect beginnings. You don't need permission from anyone. You don't need applause, approval, or recognition to start. What you need are three things: patience, because progress is never immediate, and mastery is earned in quiet, unseen hours. Discipline, because talent alone is fragile. It must be shaped, refined, and sharpened relentlessly. Courage, because greatness demands staying the course when leaving feels easier, when quitting whispers sweetly, and when the world doubts your vision. That is how legacies are built. Not by chance, not by luck, not by comfort. They are built by consistent effort, by relentless self-belief, and by refusing to let circumstances define your limits. Cristiano Ronaldo's legacy is not in the records he broke or the trophies he lifted. It is in the mindset he embodied. The mindset that shows us all, no matter where you start, no matter how lonely the journey, no matter how often the world tells you it's impossible, you can still rise, persist, and define your own story. Because in the end, greatness is not given. Greatness is chosen. And Cristiano Ronaldo chose himself again and again until the world finally caught up.